The glass of Cabernet in my hand was heavy. The room was heavy. My brother, Ethan, was beaming, basking in our father's admiration. We were celebrating his latest promotion, his latest victory in a life built entirely on my failures. I wasn't listening to the congratulations. I was watching my mother. Specifically, the way her hand trembled as she refilled my brother's water glass. A tremor that had been my only warning sign for months. A tiny crack in the porcelain of their perfect family. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A new message. I pulled it out, holding it low beneath the table's edge. It was a photo. A high-resolution image of a deed of trust for a luxury condominium in the city. The property belonged to Ethan, but the second signature, the co-signer's name, wasn't his fiancé's. It was my mother's maiden name. $500,000 withdrawn from a fixed trust, liquidated 7 weeks ago. I locked the phone. My blood didn't run cold, it simply stopped. I felt a strange, thrilling clarity. This wasn't a gesture of parental love. This was a concealed transfer. A gift of impossible magnitude, hidden from me, the dutiful but always overlooked son. The betrayal wasn't about money. It was about the decades of engineered scarcity they had subjected me to. The manufactured gap between my life and Ethan's. My father's voice cut through the silence. "Your brother's apartment was perfect," he beamed, gesturing at Ethan. "A true investment. When will you have a home of your own? When will you ever get half of what he has?" I brought the Cabernet to my lips. My smile was slow, calculated. "It already happened, Dad," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You just weren't there." Ethan choked on his drink. My mother's face turned pale. The storm had begun its work. The conflict was never a secret competition. It was active sabotage. My mother and father had spent my entire adult life subtly steering me toward paths of lesser reward. Ethan, the golden child, received the mentorship, the network connections, the quiet injections of capital that turned ambition into fortune. I received lectures on humility and hard work. The deed of trust confirmed it. The $500,000 wasn't just a down payment. It was the unearned head start that cemented his success over my struggle. They had built his pedestal with my inheritance. I had always known the favor existed, but the scale was the revelation. $500,000. My internal response was not sadness, but a fierce, surgical focus. The years of manufactured scarcity had honed me. I didn't have their network, but I had a different kind of currency, patience, and an absolute control over my own emotion. I began the slow process of untangling the $500,000 lie. I needed not just the proof of the transaction, but the intent to deceive. I needed the evidence that would not just expose them, but legally and financially ruin Ethan's perfect life. The next 3 weeks were a deep dive into the opaque world of trusts and property law. I behaved normally. I took my mother's calls. I listened to Ethan boast. They saw a compliant, mediocre son. They didn't see the man who was rebuilding their financial history brick by digital brick. My first move was securing a forensic auditor, a quiet, sharp man who didn't ask questions. I fed him the data, the initial trust documents, the tax filings, the property records. He confirmed the obvious. The $500,000 withdrawal had been disguised as a loan repayment to avoid probate disclosure, a fraudulent maneuver. My strategic action was focused on leverage. Ethan was preparing for his biggest professional merger yet, a multi-million-dollar deal that would turn his small firm into a major player. His personal finances had to be impeccable. Any hint of fraud, any question of concealed assets would put the entire deal in jeopardy. I found the one point of entry that would guarantee his professional and personal destruction: the closing paperwork for the merger. a stack of highly sensitive legal documents that required complete transparency on personal assets. I had an opportunity, a quiet window of 10 minutes in his home office during a family visit. I didn't steal the file, I simply used my phone to capture high-resolution images of two key pages, the Asset Disclosure Form and the Merger Compliance Guarantee. I compared them to the new condo deed. The $500,000 asset was omitted, a clear case of securities fraud and misrepresentation. The trap was now a cage. I called the family together for a quiet Sunday lunch. The atmosphere was brittle. They knew something was coming, but they imagined a clumsy outburst of hurt feelings. They expected me to break. Instead, I placed a small, polished wooden box on the table. Ethan laughed, nervously. "What is this, a belated birthday gift?" I pushed the box toward him. "Open it." Inside the box were 3 laminated, perfectly clear photos: the deed of trust with the $500,000 transfer, the asset disclosure form for his merger, and the compliance guarantee. The truth was silent, devastating. Ethan's face went white. He knew. He understood the legal weight of those documents. The fraud wasn't just familial, it was criminal. "It's a mistake," he stammered, looking frantically at our father. "A paperwork error." My mother started to cry, silent, desperate tears. I didn't raise my voice. I simply leaned forward. "You committed fraud to conceal a gift. You lied on a federally regulated disclosure form. The entire merger is now tainted. The SEC and your partners will see this as malicious deception." The power imbalance was absolute. I held his entire future in my quiet hand. The execution was clean, merciless. I didn't go to the SEC. That would have been loud, messy. I called his merger partner's lead counsel instead. A brief, professional call. I introduced myself as an interested party, a co-trustee, and mentioned my discovery of a discrepancy in the asset disclosures. I didn't send the photos. I simply gave them the account numbers and the condo address. The next day, Ethan's world imploded. The partner's legal team, smelling fraud and liability, immediately froze the merger. The financial institution involved in the condo loan was notified. The investigation was internal, swift, and brutal. He was publicly accused of misrepresentation and breach of fiduciary duty. His professional reputation evaporated into ash. He called me that night, his voice choked with panic. "What do you want? I'll give you the money back. I'll give you all of it." I hung up before he could finish. The money was never the point. I drove past the luxury condo a week later. There was a "for sale" sign outside. A quiet, clinical end to his perfect chapter. The family hasn't called. They won't. They finally understand the quiet, unshakable power of the son they tried to starve. I didn't just take half of what he had, I took the foundation of everything he was. I felt nothing but a clean, cold emptiness. They taught me that success is a zero-sum game, that the rules don't apply to the clever or the ruthless. I listened, I learned, and then I applied their lesson back to them. There was no victory lap, only quiet clarity. I had what I needed, they had what they deserved.